Alright, it is 6, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. Alright, so today we are talking about particle systems. And particle systems are a really good way to add polish into your projects fairly cheaply. They'll look really good if you know how to use them, but the default settings are a little bad. So it really helps to know which settings will actually start to make them look like they fit into your game. Alright, so if you haven't already, make sure that you download that package that I put into the chat, and go ahead and open up Unity, and we'll get started. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do when working with particle systems is to actually create one. So, oh wait, actually, before we do that, we want to make sure that we update our layers, because Unity package stuff is kind of weird about that. So if we just go to anything in the hierarchy with a sprite, maybe player, go to sorting layer over here, and add sorting layer, so we can get to this tags and layers page. We can click on this kind of slide bar square over here, bring this up, and we want to click on tag manager, double click on tag manager, and just make sure that we have the right layers and stuff. Alright, so if that is working for you, go ahead and alright, so if that worked for you, great. If it didn't, feel free to share your screen, because that's actually something we can do over Zoom. You can share your screen if you're having trouble. But yeah, once we have those tags and layers imported, we'll okay, all right. We are now sharing the screen. I don't think I can see. Oh, all right. All right, my bad. Okay, so if you didn't, let's do that part again. So we want to make sure that our tags and layers are updated, since Unity packages are kind of weird about that. So if you click on player and go over to the sorting layer and the sprite render and add sorting layer, you'll see this kind of slide bar box up here in the corner next to tags and layers. If you click that, we'll click on tag manager, double click on it, and I'll just make sure that our tags and layers are correct. Okay, so once everybody has that done, we'll actually start getting into creating particle systems. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. The first step that you want to do is right click in the hierarchy, go down to effects, and we'll create a new particle system. Okay, so this is just what a default particle system does. It spawns these default particles in a kind of cone pattern. Obviously, this doesn't really look like anything useful, so we're gonna actually change some of these settings. So every particle system comes with all of these different modules describing different parts of what those particles look like. There are a lot of modules, and it's a lot to go over, so we're just gonna go through them one by one. I'm not gonna go by every single one, but it definitely does help to just play around with them on your own time. It's like each module isn't that difficult to understand by itself. It's just knowing all the little things to put together to make it actually look good. All right, the first thing I'm noticing is that these particles last way too long. It's going off the screen, so we want to decrease that. We'll set start lifetime to 1. They're still moving pretty fast. We'll also turn down the speed to 1. All right, that's kind of a cool glow effect. But what we want to do is make a particle for when you land after a jump. And real quick, I'll just show off what we have to work with. So my ultimate goal for this is to add a particle effect for when you jump and when you land. I want little dust clouds to come out wherever you land. And I also, after we do that, I'm gonna make like an after image effect for him running. I don't know, maybe it'll just look cool. But yeah, those are the things that we want to do, and what we want to accomplish with the dust is a dust cloud right now. So if you want to actually like, this is just how to control what your particle system is doing at the moment. It's kind of just like a helpful hub. All right. So we set lifetime and speed to 1. We also want to make the size a little smaller. Oh, wait, no. Actually, okay. So for size, we might as well do something like this. So if you click the drop down menu next to start size, you can choose between a couple different options. We'll do random between 2 constants. And this allows us to put a range for what we want our particles size to be. So let's, oh, what did I just do? Okay. So let's go ahead and do 1.5 to 2. All right. These also aren't looking very dust cloudy in color. So we'll go ahead and click on start color. Oh, give me a second. All right. Start color. Let's go ahead and make it like a beige, kind of like dirt color. All right. Now it looks a little bit more like dust. Um, and also, something that we're not going to change, but you should probably know if you're going to do this. This section, play on awake, it's important to know how to use this, because if you want a particle system attached to an object, you just want to make sure if you're not wanting your particle system to play right away, you turn that off. Okay, we're gonna move on to the render. Oh, okay, actually, one thing you might one thing that might be happening to your particle system is its Z position is very much negative. So we want to set that to 0. I'll just make sure that it actually renders when you play it. Let's actually go ahead and see what this looks like in the player right now. Okay, so just a disembodied cloud of dust in the middle of our scene. Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much what we expected. Okay, so we'll go down to render. A couple key points is just, since we have a background, we want to make sure that it's rendering in front of that. So where we can check that is down here in sorting layer and order in layer. And this is the same kind of thing that appears in the sprite render of normal sprites. So we want to check that background. This background's at 0 in layer. So we'll go ahead and set the sorting layer order to be 1 above it, so that it always just renders in front of the background. All right. We will go on to the emissions module. Okay. So if we want to accomplish a dust cloud effect, we don't really want it to be emitting particles at a constant rate. So let's go ahead and put that at 0 and push plus down here in bursts. So now it'll create kind of a burst of particle effects instead. Let's turn that down to 5. Okay, that's kind of looking like we want. Yeah. Okay. Next thing we'll go into is the shape. So this is the shape of this defines where your particles can spawn. So right now it's in a cone shape. So we'll start at the bottom and move up. Um, it's this is the general shape that we want our particles to be moving in, starting from the bottom and then going up. But what we probably want to do is make this angle a little bit more extreme. So these particles are kind of going out to the side, kind of like you're displacing dust. So we'll set that at 80. That might be a little bit too large of a range. So we'll make radius. Oh, wait. Okay. Actually, you know what? We'll make radius 4 and we'll make the arc 150. But we'll also set the scale to something smaller. And you can move around your particle system. We'll just move it behind the player to see how a dust cloud might look right now. Okay. So another thing that you can do with the shape, um, it has a position, rotation, and scale field, which is exactly the same as the fields in transform. And they work pretty much the same way. It's just it only defines where the spawn area is. But we're not going to worry about that now because we're going to be keeping our particle system separate from the actual player. Okay, so let's talk about what we have so far. It's, I mean, it it doesn't really look like dust right now. So, and that's probably has to do with how there's no actual like change in size or color. It just kind of looks like some beige lights coming out of this squirrel's feet. So we want to add some of these other fields. All right. So first one that we want to do is color over lifetime. And it will bring up this window. And what we want to do is click on this pentagon on the right side and turn alpha to 0. So now our particles will become transparent over time. All right, so it's looking a little better. I still want these dust particles to be changing in size. So make sure you click the check mark for each of these modules that we're adding. And we're going to go into size over lifetime. All right, so if we click on this, it activates and deactivates this kind of curve. And you can edit it in this window over here. Okay, so right now, this curve describes the particle systems as starting from a size of 0 and going to a size of 1. And that's more of a multiplier of your start size. I mean, it kind of works, but I want the particles to start small but get large really quickly. So I'm gonna make it more of like a square root graph, kind of like that. And if you see, that really pulls together the kind of effect of a dust cloud landing. So it's really important to know just what kind of graphs you can make with these kind of size curves. All right, so now that we have a actually decent looking dust effect, actually I want to make it a little smaller. So I'm gonna turn down the scale to 0.2. Okay, yeah, that looks good, I think. So now that we have a particle system that we like the look of, it's time to actually implement it to our character. So first thing that we want to do is drag particle system down into our prefabs folder. So now we have a prefab of that particle system. We'll delete the particle system that we haven't seen. We don't want it. We want it to actually only exist when we're landing. And now we're actually gonna figure out when to spawn this particle system in. Okay, so we're gonna want to open our C# file for player controller. You can do that by double clicking here, right clicking, and then pushing open C# project, either of the one. And we'll go into this really basic player controller script. So if we want to sense when the player is leaving the ground and landing back on it, the one field that we're really interested in is grounded. So I've already added the logic for grounded. It'll always describe when the player is on the ground or not. So pretty much all we need to do is to use it to make sure to know when we're landing. Okay, so if statement, if the player, we're gonna take advantage of the fact that we can check grounded before it's updated in the new frame. Since update is called every single frame, if we call grounded here before it's updated to the current value of grounded, if we do this, so this is the current value of grounded. This is the value of grounded last turn. So last frame. So if last frame you were not grounded, but this frame you are grounded, that means you're landing. Okay. So now that we know exactly when that event is happening, we want to spawn in a dust cloud where the player is. So we're gonna make a field where we can actually put in a dust cloud. And then we're going to go back down to where we sense where you land. We're going to do an instantiate for the dust cloud. And we're going to give it the position of transform, rotation of transform. And we do not want this, dust cloud to be childed to the player because it'll actually move around the particles while the player is moving. That's not what we want. It won't look good. So yeah, let's test that out. Oh wait, actually we need to actually put in the dust cloud prefab first. Okay, Unity. All right. So we're gonna go to the player, go into our prefabs folder, go to our player script, and drag in the particle system. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna rename this to dust cloud. Okay. So now that's in. Let's check if that actually worked. Oh. Okay. I don't. Huh. That's not really what we wanna. Well, let's go ahead and see what is happening with these. Okay, so it looks like these. Huh. Yeah, Matthew, we're gonna add that in a bit. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out why it's not. Okay, so it looks like these cones are being rotated. Uh, in a way where it's not really what we want it to be. It looks like it's a 90, negative 90. Yeah, so that's what it should look like. Right now it's not being rotated to that. Okay, that's really weird. Let's check our prefab. Oh, no wonder. Okay, so our prefab was rotated for some reason. Let's turn that off. Oh. Or maybe our prefab. Okay. Okay, I know what's wrong then. It's because we're actually using the rotation. It's using. It's because we're using the rotation of the player when we're instantiating it. So let's just do, instead of transform rotation, new, and that just describes. That's like the object that describes rotation, and we'll just make it empty for now. Wait, actually, does that? You know what? Let's test it. That might have the same issue where it's rotating it for some reason. Yeah, it is. Okay. Um. hmm. All right. Let's just do dust cloud transform rotation. All right. That should actually fix it. Ah, there's this kind of like drop down menu that goes down every time I go to the top of the screen I'm sharing, and it like blocks the play button. All right, so now this dust cloud is working, but now if you see, it spawns one every single time that we land. So we obviously don't want that. We want it to disappear after a couple of seconds, or when the first particle that it makes finishes. So we are going to make a new script, call it particle controller. Double click it to open it in Visual Studio or whatever you're using. And we probably want to define a float for how much time it takes until it dies. So since we only want these particle systems to last for one iteration of their um, particle animation thing, we'll make a float called lifetime and set it equal to the lifetime inside the particle system. Oh, okay. Main dot start lifetime. Okay. Ah, god damn it. All right. Constant. All right. Should it be the start value? I believe so, because that's. Let's go ahead and open our prefab for the dust cloud. So we only want the lifetime of one round of these particles. So like there, that long. That should be that. Oh, okay. I guess it's no. It's not. So I think it's constant. I mean, yeah, I could do that too. I could uncheck looping, but I just want to show that you can access the fields inside of your particle system if that's what you need to do. I guess we'll just go. I guess we'll just go with constant for now. Now that we've unchecked looping on our particle system, but just remember you can access those fields. It's a little confusing since they've updated particle systems to work on a different on a different on a different system, but that's fine. Okay, so now in update here, we probably want it to be fixed update because we don't want our particles to only the lifetime of our particles to be dependent on frame rate. We'll decrease lifetime by how much time actually passes. And then we're gonna check if lifetime is less than or equal to 0. Destroy this game object. All right, let's test it out. And again, if any of you guys have questions, if any of your guys' programs aren't working how they should be, feel free to type it in chat or just ask. All right. Okay, that's not working. So they're not actually disappearing. That's a little weird. Oh, it's because we didn't actually add the script. I don't think. Yeah, we didn't. All right. So add your particle controller. And yep. And now our particles actually go away. All right. So that's just a really basic dust cloud particle system. Just using the basic default Unity particle. But say you don't want to use the Unity particle, the default particle. It looks ugly. It's just a little fuzzball. That's gross. We want to use an actual spray. How do we do that? Okay. So particles use materials. And you can change it down here in render for what material it uses. And these are all the default ones. So let's go ahead and make our own. We're gonna go over to the materials folder in our assets, right click, create, and go down to material down here over. And we're gonna call it, I don't know, we're gonna make an after image effect, so let's call it after image. You wanna go up to shader in the material, go down to legacy shaders, click on particles, and go to additive. Alright, so now it should be this white square, and it should allow you to select a sprite. So if you click on select here, we're gonna go ahead and click on run 4. How about that? Honestly, just picking any of these run sprites is fine. What we really want it to just look like is like the after image of him running. All right, so now that we have this material, let's go ahead and make a new particle system. Is this possible to do without legacy shaders? Maybe, but this is just the way I learned how to do it. I mean, hey, let's try it. Let's look around. So in particles here, these are both for 3D materials. Um, let's try doing Sprite. Yeah, so Sprite doesn't actually have an area where you can put in a sprite for it. It's okay. I think this is actually a kind of material that you could put on sprites rather than an actual thing. So you have to first select unlit, texture, and put it in here. Oh wow. Oh Jesus. Okay. Uh, then you have to change it to an unlit text shader. Wait, how do I do that? Unlit text shader. In here? Shader type. Wait. Oh. Oh, what the heck? Okay. Um, GUI. Okay. Uh, UI. Okay. Text. Okay, yeah, that looks like it works too. Okay. I mean, we'll test both. All right, so let's go ahead and make a new particle system. Oh, I already did. All right, so for an after image, what we would be doing is probably spawning in an after image on the position of the player while he's running. So we don't want these, and these particles are going to be images of the player. So if we go down to the render for this new particle system, if we drag our after image into default particle system, oh look, it's tiny, it's tiny squirrels now coming out of this guy. All right. So obviously we don't want that to happen if we're making an after image. If we're making an after image, we don't want it to move at all, technically. Um, we want its lifetime to be fairly short, so like 1 second. We want its size to match about what the player is, so I would say maybe 4 times. Okay, that's too big. 3, no, 2, 1.5. That's still not right. I think 2 was, yeah, 2 is about right. All right, we'll go with 2. Start color. So, if we want our after image to look cool, maybe let's just go with a blue, dark blue. That's too dark. Maybe that. All right. We'll go down to emissions. We'll do the same thing we did for the dust cloud. We don't really want it to be doing it over time. Uh, let's make a burst. We probably only want 1, so we'll see how that works. Yeah. So it just makes an after image for a short amount of time. In the shape, okay, so this shape, well, it's a line, first of all. Okay, but we don't want it to actually be over a range. We want it to be a single point. We want it to be very exact. So, yeah, so we'll make this arc equal. Oh, oh wait, that's actually how it works. I'm not sure. Let's get an aerial view of it. Oh, I need to decrease its radius. All right. Let's make the radius as small as it can be. And now it will always be at that one point. All right, seems good. Okay, so the next step we probably want to do is, I want its color to change over time. So let's click that, do this, and we probably want to turn down its opacity a little. I'm probably not going to do it, yeah, I'll do it completely. And what you can also do in this is change its color over time. Let's make it look cool, make it go into purple. Can't really see that. Yeah, that's a little disappointing. Yeah, okay. If we drag this closer, it'll change into purple a little sooner. So, yeah, you can't really see it. Okay. That sucks. Maybe if we do red. I think it's just because of the background. That's a little hard to see. Yeah. Oh well. Okay. So let's now go over to size over lifetime. Actually, you know what? We probably don't need that. We probably want a constant size all throughout. So we won't do a size over lifetime. And I think that's pretty much all. Yeah. Okay. So we'll do the same thing that we did with with the last one. Drag it into our prefabs folder. I'm gonna name it after image. And honestly, there are a ton of different ways you can do this. This is just the way that I'm gonna do it now. Honestly, if you play around with it yourself, you can definitely probably find a different or even better way to do it. But this is just the way I'm deciding to do it now. Oh, and we're also gonna turn off looping for this one. Okay, so now that we have this new effect, we'll go into our player controller, add a new field, and after image. And we just want to be spawning these when the player is running. So if we go down into this do movement method, we can see where we check if the player is moving left or right. We'll just add a instantiate after image. We do want the transform of the player, so or the position of the player, and we're going to do what we did last time, where we take the rotation of the after image since it messes it up for some reason. And we're going to take that same line and put it into the left one, or right one. Oh, and we also have to add the particle controller script to this new one. All right. Let's see what happens. Oh, I didn't drag it into the thing. All right. Let's see what happens. There's already going to be one problem just with the way I implemented sprite turning, but oh. Okay. Huh. That's a little weird. All right. So that's just how our after image looks right now. I see two problems. It's not spawning in the right place, and also it's not turning with the player. So something that I'm probably gonna do is well, if the player is facing, I have a boolean that describes if the player is facing right or not. Um, that I just flip every time the player moves right or moves left while it's facing right and moves right when it's facing left. So we probably want to make these checks when we're making these new after images. And the way we would probably do that is just multiply its scale x factor by -1. I kind of don't want to do it because it's just a lot of steps, but you know, whatever. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna make a method that does it for me. That's correct, clean coding hygiene. All right, so we're gonna want to make a private void flip sprite or flip game object, and we're gonna have it pass a game object. So, and we're just gonna make get the scale of that game object's transform, and actually, you know what? We're gonna take it, make it equal to a vector 3. Call it new scale. Set the x of the new scale to negative of itself, and then set the scale of that transform back to the scale. And this works because this is a separate reference from this actual transform. So we can set it back on itself, and then it updates it with the new changes that we make. That's a little weird conceptually if you haven't really worked with the vector3 and game object classes in Unity that much, but it makes sense once you've been doing it for a while. It is weird, but like you get used to it. All right, so now that we have that method, we'll use it here. We want this instantiate to actually be equal to something, so game object after image object, and we'll pass that into here. Do the same thing on the other side. Spell it right. Okay, so now it should be facing the right way. We solved one of the problems. Yippee. Yeah, so now it's, I think, wait, did it just, god damn it. Okay, yeah, so, we don't need that if you're moving right. So, we'll get rid of that. I just copied the problem on the other side. Okay. Now it should be working. And next we'll tackle that problem with the displacement. And that's a pretty easy issue to fix. That's just a problem with where we actually set the shape of the particle system. If you see here, or here I guess, the shape is right here. And if we change it to be higher, oh, I guess it doesn't actually show here. All right, well, if we make if you go into the shape and go into the position field. Let's say we give it a height of 1. Okay, now it's more aligned. Okay, cool. Now we have a more complete after image effect. All right. Those were the two things I wanted to show off of how to make, but if you have more questions about specifically like how to make some certain effects or just specificities about particle systems, feel free to stay around and ask, but that's pretty much all I wanted to actually show off. So thanks for coming. Um, and definitely try it out yourself. There's a lot of things you can learn about this. Thank you, Noah. For the meantime, though, I'm gonna figure out if I can make the color actually change because that was kind of annoying me. Oh, I forgot to show off that you can make um, multiple benchmarks for the colors that you want. But honestly, you know what? Whatever. Yeah, still not working. Oh. Oh, also, let's probably try out the other material. Let's see if that works. Oh. Okay, so I think with this one, it's not as transparent. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, so this one's definitely less transparent than the one we were using. So it looks a lot more solid. Man, that's trippy. Okay. Yeah, so this is really useful. This is a real useful effect if you just want to, I don't know, put it on your player constantly. Or like during a dash, kind of just have this effect to really sell the speed of it. What else could we put on this? Do we have any suggestions on what we want to add? Or maybe just suggestions for any kind of particle effect in general. Jump particles? So like particles that follow the arc of your jump. Okay, so I think that would be a lot of the same. Ooh, that was cool now. Okay, I don't know what it was where it wasn't updating the colors, but now it's doing it. All right. Like when they jump, there should also be jump particles. Okay, that's a pretty easy fix or easy addition. Uh, it's honestly a lot like what we were doing before, where we're checking if last frame you were grounded and this frame you're, uh, or last frame you weren't grounded, this frame you are. It's just now you're checking if you were grounded last frame and not grounded this frame. So that means you just jumped and will also spawn in jump particles then. Yeah. So pretty quick fix. If you wanna, let me show off how to just like add scene ambiance with a particle system. Have the dust particles go in the opposite direction with the player's movement. Okay. I think that's possible. So that is Okay, we're just gonna hard code it because we only have two directions the player can go. In the future, though, you can probably a lot of these different modules account for um, more what's it called? More nuanced movement. Um, but for now, we're just gonna hack it. All right. So right now, we see that the main direction is up. Um, so if we go into shape, we can actually rotate. Oh no, not that. We can actually rotate in the Z direction. Wait, what the fuck? Okay. In the Y direction to be angled. So now if we play it, yeah, it's more to the side. That's not what really what we want though. We want it to be like expressing the movement. So we'll turn up the speed a little. Um, maybe two. Hmm. And I also don't like how it can spawn a little in the air, so we'll turn the radius down. Yeah, radius. So now it's coming more from a point. Kind of looks like it's being thrown off from a jump. And I also don't like how it's going up a lot still. We'll rotate a little bit more, maybe turn down the angle. All right. I'm gonna rotate a little bit more, just so that that one side is parallel with the ground. All right, and you know what? I changed my mind. I want a wider angle. All right. So now we have a slightly more directional sprite. So like that looks okay, even without the directional kind of checking. But if we do want the directional check, what we would do is very similar to what we did for the after image. It's just if you are facing right, um, yeah, I guess it would be for both. So if you are facing right, you want it to be made the we made the dust go left, and it'll go left if you're jumping right. So if you are not going right, then we want it to flip it. We actually want to do that below the instantiate. Do the same thing we did here before. And flip game object. Boom. Alright, and we do the same thing when we also spawn the other one. Okay. Let's see how that works. And now it's not doing it at all. Wait, what the heck? Am I stupid? Huh. What the heck? What was it not working for? Huh? It doesn't do it if I'm facing left. Okay, so it goes into here, suppose flipping it makes it do something wrong. Okay, you know what? We can check. Uh, that is really weird. Huh. Huh. Okay. So if we change the scale to negative for particles, it doesn't show it. Okay. I mean, I guess we can do it a different way. Uh, Instead of flipping the actual game object, if it's left, we'll get the we'll get the we will get the particle system of the dust cloud. Get the value for shape. Wait, no. Okay. Particle system dot shape dot angle. Wait, that's not quite right. So shape, and it's the rotation of this. I guess it'll call it would be called rotation. Yeah, and then dot y. Yep, and we just make this the negative of itself, I think. Yeah, that's what we want. Okay. So we'll just do this entire statement again. I was going on about good code hygiene, but you know, whatever. I don't care. Oh. Oh, right. Since it's a vector 3, we can't actually do that. We'll do what we did before. Make a new vector 3. New angle. Take out the y because it's not. We want the actual rotation. You can't change parameters of shape. Can't. Oh, you can't. Oh, damn. Okay. So in that case, what you oh, I don't know why we didn't just do this before, but you can just change the z rotation here to be 180, and it would be the same thing. We could also scale it. How? Because we tried scaling it before. Wait, what the fuck? What? We did that before, and it didn't work. Oh, that's the wrong one. It actually works. Wait, no, it doesn't. It still doesn't show up. It has to be a positive scale. Okay. So you know what? We'll just get the rotation of the dust object. it's called. We'll make the new angles Z equal 180. Definitely not good coding hygiene. Again, just like setting constants. But you know what? I don't care. Obviously, you want to make this a little bit prettier if you're using it in your actual project, but I just want it to do something, so I'm gonna make it do that thing. The real challenge is if you want to make it do something else and using the same thing to do it. Alright, so now both ways the dust particle should be going away from me. Yep, and yep. Alright, so that's just a small way to add a little bit of dynamicness to your particles. I guess we can do another particle. Any suggestions? If not, we'll just make a couple environmental things. Just like, I don't know, little sparkles that, yeah, ambient. Alright, so for ambient particles, what we want to do is make a particle system. So, effects, particle system. We'll call it ambient. Okay, so for these ambient particles, we don't really want them to be flying around the screen. That's not very ambient. So we can set them to a very small speed. Okay. Lifetime can probably also be a little shorter. We'll do 2. And we'll also make them a bit smaller. Let's do a random constant between two constants. We'll do, I don't know, 0.2 to 0.5. Those look like a pretty good size. Maybe a little smaller. 0.4. Okay. And we do want this to play on awake because we just want it to be constantly doing stuff. Emissions, maybe that's a little too high. But let's go over to shape first because that's more important. Alright, so now we're going to go into a different kind of shape. Let's do sphere. Oh, you know what? Maybe not sphere. Because for the sphere, all the particles are radiating out from the center. I don't think that's really what we want. Maybe a circle. So right now this circle is rotated, so that's parallel to the camera. We want to change the x rotation of it to -90. Same problem. Oh, you know what? We can change that. We can fix that by just making the start speed here, a random between 2 constants, and make the other one -0.1. So now they move in basically random directions. Yeah. All right. So we'll make this circle a little larger. Maybe enough to cover the entire screen, actually. Yeah, because we want these ambient particles to just happen all throughout the camera view. Right now they're kind of boring. They just kind of blip in and blip out. So let's do color over lifetime. Make them fade out. I actually want to change this start color too. If this is like an ocean view, I don't know, blue. Yeah, that looks ugly. Let's do light teal. And we'll make the color go into Hmm. Yellow? Ugh. Maybe not. Green? Sure, why not? Okay. Let's see. Let's see how it looks insane, so we can actually like tell what needs fixing. Oh, okay. Right now the ambient its Z value is way too large. Yeah, for some reason the Unity editor does that. We're gonna set that back to 0. Okay. Huh. So that looks strange. Yeah, it's definitely something that needs tweaking. Maybe let's go with a yellow color. Maybe it signifies fireflies or something. You know. Okay, that's starting to look a little better. All right. Let's go ahead and try some of these new modules. Let's do velocity over lifetime, and we'll do a curve instead of those. Space. We'll do world. Um, okay, so this one's obviously a little difficult to work with. It's just a lot of stuff all at once. If you want to add a wind effect, you do something like this, where they start off at a negative velocity and then go into to a and then go into a higher one. If you want this to look a little weirder, kind of like that, you get streaks. If you want it to accelerate instead of decelerate, do that. Yeah. So a really good use of this would maybe be like for a space game. You got particles passing through outside the window, and that can be achieved by like putting them behind the render for the wall of a spaceship, with what we did here, and just changing its velocity over time. You know what? Let's just add as many modules on this particle system as we can, just to show off what they can do. All right, let's turn on trails. Wow. Okay. Trail material and render module. Okay. So we actually need to make a trail material. Let's just go with the default one. All right. It's looking kind of cool now. Something weird that we did earlier is now being illuminated. We want it to go forward instead of backwards. So we'll do it like this. Still looks pretty weird. I found that trails are a little, I don't know, wonky. But if we just like adjust some stuff here. Detection move. I don't know if that looks better or worse. You can do a color over the trail. It's really just illuminating how janky trails are. Okay, so trails, maybe not the best idea. Trails work really well when you have a lot of small particles all together, and you're moving that particle system. Let me actually show that off. Go back to shape, make that size a lot smaller, maybe even smaller than that. So see, now this trail actually looks pretty good because all these small particles together kind of hide the imperfections of the trail before. And if we go into the scene even, if we move this around, oh, okay, guess not. Oh, it's because they have velocity. Let's set the velocity to 0. Or actually, let's turn off Still no one. Okay. Never mind. Setting back the radius. But yeah, that's kind of my approach to ambient. Wait, did everything just go back to? That's another thing. You gotta make sure that you're not actually in play when you make all these changes. But yeah, that's the general approach to ambient particles. Oh, still -90 for some reason. All right. Again, I'll be taking questions. I'm just, you know, here if you guys need help on something. And also, like, definitely ask if you're curious about the applications of some of these because there are a lot of different possibilities for what you can do with these. It's pretty much just knowing the basics and knowing what's possible. I guess I'll go over. Yeah, that's a little problem with the player controller, but yeah. I guess we'll go over some of these other modules if there's no other questions. All right, let's try color by speed. So I assume I personally never use this one. Okay, I personally never use this one, but I assume it just means if it's at 0 velocity or a low velocity, it'll be this color. And if it's at a higher velocity, it'll be at this color. And the way we can test this is velocity over time. I'll do curves. I honestly think curves are just easier to work with. Yeah, okay. Man, that looks weird. Okay. Well, that's a really basic thing for color by speed. Let's check out this. You know what? I've used this before. Wait, actually, I'm not completely sure how to use collision. But again, there's documentation for each of these modules. If you're curious about what each one does, it's pretty easy to find them. It's putting them together that's a little more difficult. If you want a more I don't know, like physics related approach with your particles, you can use force over lifetime, and this will actually like oh right, it's not. It's a little annoying when these it's a little annoying to work with these in 2D because all these particle systems are usually formatted for 3D. Yeah, but it's just important to know where your rotation's doing. All right, so force over lifetime will actually apply forces to each of these particles, almost as if they had rigid bodies to calculate physics. You can use this to make, like, I guess hail, maybe rain. Yeah, you know what? Let's make rain. So the first thing that I want to do is make these particles a little thinner. I would do that by going into the shape, making the scale of y maybe like 0.5. Oh, actually, you know what? That's not actually going to change the scale of the particles. What I want to do there is maybe start size. Maybe it's 3D size. Yeah, yeah, it is. Okay. Um, Man, that looks weird. Maybe if I rotate it more. Um, Start rotation, probably. Here? No? Here? Yeah. And I probably want the start velocity to be lower. No, I want the start velocity to be like, if it's, hmm. Yeah, okay, honestly, I want to change this circle shape to a cone. So now, I also want to make this rotation. Oh. So yeah, we're pretty much done with the workshop right now. I'm just screwing around. uh, if you guys have a particular request, I'll do it. But yeah, we're pretty much done here. Huh. That's really weird. I thought this was a cone. It's looking like a. Oh, maybe it's the radius. Yeah. No, not that. Not angle either. Oh, okay. Now that looks a little bit more familiar. And the speed needs to be higher. So it's really weird rotating these. I don't really know how it works. Okay, so this would act kind of like a rain veil. Turn its lifetime mode higher because we want it to last longer. Velocity over lifetime, we can probably turn that off. Force over lifetime. Whoops. Okay. Alright, looking a little bit more like rain now. I want it to be wider though, so turn a finger. That didn't really work. Maybe it's because the radius. Yeah. It's raining. They look like daggers, you know? Just blue lasers falling from the sky. We can probably also turn up the emissions if we want it to be raining harder. It's not really covering this side. I'll make the radius a little larger. Alright. Yeah. That's how you would make rain with this. Maybe a more appropriate color. Let's do that. We can turn that off. So honestly, kind of a simple process, just going over a particle system, making iterative changes, and just putting it together to make some kind of, I don't know, interesting effect. Oh, am I doing a color? I'm making it more transparent. I don't want that. Rain doesn't get more transparent. I think it's more green. Maybe a darker blue one. So it transitions from being lighter to darker. Alright, yeah. So it looks like nobody has any more questions, so I guess I'll wrap it up. Thanks for coming, everyone. It was I mean, as much fun as it can be. It was fun. So thank you for stopping by. Hope you learned something about Unity particles, and that's all.